it's not looking pretty right now, but they always overreach. And someone here was just asking about 2026. How whether we get the Senate, whether we get the House back, because they're already doing crazy stuff.
Right.
So why don't you start off to tell us what you think, and tell us what's happening with you, where you're going. I know we're in good hands with Alexia.
Yes.
That was a very good result. Alexia, and then having Dan succeed Carrie. You know, so
Well, I thank you, and it's great to be with you, Michael. And it's been a tough time for us Democrats. I'm going to take my pin off because I'm going to be a little partisan. So, all right. Let me see. So the good news is we don't have to wait 4 years for things to change. 2 years is the next election. And in 2 years, you could change the House. The Senate will be tougher, but not impossible. And all you need is one of those bodies, and then Trump's agenda is over. Elon Musk will not be the Speaker of the House if Democrats control the House. So there is good reason for us to be motivated. They want us to be demoralized. They want us to believe that this was a landslide election. It was not a landslide election. In fact, Trump received under 50% of the popular vote, so it wasn't even a majority. And I do believe that although we had some issues, they are issues that can be resolved by the next election. For example, I think a big reason why we lost in this election was because President Biden, and I think he's a consequential president who did a really good job, but he should not have run for reelection. He should have been what he said he would be, a transitional president, and let another round of candidates, a younger generation, run for the nomination. There would have been excitement. There would have been a lot of press attention. Instead, he stayed, and he stayed too long. And even after the disastrous debate, he continued to stay. And then by the time he gave the reins over to Kamala Harris,
I don't know.
it put her in a very difficult position. And I say this, I think Kamala Harris did a really good job in her campaign. I thought she did about as well as you could ask for in a campaign of 100 and what days. I mean, really remarkable. I think that she excelled in the debate. She destroyed Trump in the debate. She gave an incredible speech at the convention. She gave incredible speech at the mall, the Ellipse. She just handled herself really well and exceeded all expectations. There are a couple things I think that she could have done differently, and I know a lot of people have talked about it, but I agree. I think that the interview she had with The View, where they asked her a question that she should have been ready for, which is how would you be different from Joe Biden? She didn't have an answer. She said she wouldn't. And that's different from what the public wanted. Whether we like it or not, the public wanted change. This was a change election. It's a change election throughout the world, not just here. And here we were asking people to support someone that they didn't know that much about, but said they would be an extension of Joe Biden. And so I think that she messed up on that. Now, it's interesting. Whenever you go into a friendly media environment, you let your guard down. When you go on Fox News and you get grilled by Neil Cavuto, who, by the way, just announced he's leaving Fox, when you get grilled by Neil Cavuto, you come out really well. Kamala did really well. She fought back. She gave great answers. And that was a success. When you go on The View to a friendly environment, you let your guard down. And then when they ask you a question, a softball, how will you be different than Joe Biden? You say something that then it gets turned into an ad that runs throughout the election. The second thing that she should have done differently is I think that Democrats benefit from having a Sister Soldier moment. If you remember, Bill Clinton, when he was running for president, went before I forget the group, but it was largely African American group, and he went there and he said that we need to stand up against all hate, and that includes hate from the rapper Sister Soldier, who said it's time that we start killing white people. And he went before the group, and members of the group were really upset that he would choose that group to say that. But most of the public were like, hey, this guy speaks the truth and he's a different kind of Democrat. It's called a Sister Soldier moment. It's okay to go to your supporters and call out the excesses. And what I mean by that is when you're asked if you support taxpayer funded gender assignment surgeries for prisoners,
Right.
you say no. You say no because that's a crazy idea. There are not many people in the country who support that. And yes, we have some activists in our party who believe that we should be an absolutist on those issues. But no, that when you have prisoners, they don't have the same rights as everyone else. And you're not sacrificing our democratic principles by saying that, no, we're not going to use taxpayer money to support sex change operations for prisoners. That's an easy one. But she couldn't even say that. And they used that commercial and beat her over the head with it. That commercial that says, she's for they, them, Donald Trump's for you. Meanwhile, that was a policy that was in place under the Trump administration. She should have said that. Instead, her answer was, I will follow the law. That's a weak response. They didn't think that ad would hurt her, but it did. We should not be the party of crazy. They're the party of crazy. They're the party of eating dogs and cats and radical conspiracy theories about fraudulent elections. We're the party of common sense. And so when they're able to tar us on things like gender assignment surgeries for prison inmates, it's a misrepresentation of our party, our beliefs. And I have a friend I was discussing this with, and she said, well, I'd rather be the party that stands up for transgender rights. And I said, well, how's that going to be now for the transgender community now that Donald Trump is elected? Because the overriding priority for the Democratic Party, the one thing that should bind us all together, the one common goal for everyone, regardless of your ideology, should be that the Democratic Party should be focused on winning elections. If we can't win elections, we can't do any of the things we want to do. Climate change, healthcare, education, women's reproductive rights, civil liberties, LGBTQ rights. We can't do any of that if we don't win elections. So we have to be smarter. We have to have better messaging to show that we're the party of common sense. And that brings me to my last point, and that we've heard a lot about how the media has changed. Indeed, if we're the party depending on editorial boards at newspapers, we're going to lose. People don't read newspapers anymore. They're online. They don't even watch cable TV like they used to. Joe Scarborough told me a couple years ago that cable TV was dying, and he was right, and it happened a lot faster than I thought. I love going on Morning Joe. I love doing MSNBC and CNN, but the people are now watching podcasts. They're watching Joe Rogan, and the people who decide elections are not getting information the way that we do. They're getting it from alternative media, the Joe Rogans of the world. And it's not just that Kamala should have gone on Joe Rogan. She should have, but you have to have a media strategy that focuses on a lot of these podcasts. Trump was doing that. He was doing all these under the radar podcasts, focusing on men who feel like they're left out. Incel community. Incel stands for the involuntary celibate, but that's his crowd. He's focusing on them. And as much as you can continue talking to The View and MSNBC and newspapers all you want, you need to start reaching out to those individuals who get their information elsewhere. They're the ones who believe wrongly that the economy is bad. They're the ones who believe wrongly that crime is way up. They get that from the alternative media. And it's time we go on there and we spread our message. It's time also that we fund our own alternative media. We need our own Joe Rogan. We have the Midas Touch Network, which I'm a part of, and I try to do my best to do videos on the Midas Touch Network on YouTube. And if you're not watching, I encourage you to do so. That is our alternative media. That's the largest channel for our side of the aisle, legal political news. They have 3.5 million subscribers. They get better ratings than MSNBC and CNN. But it's important that we continue supporting those efforts. So that's my analysis of the election. None of these things are impossible to overcome. We just have to be smarter and run better races and have a better way to communicate with the voters. And I think we will take back the House in 2 years, because the one thing you can count on from the Republicans and Donald Trump they're going to screw up.
Mhm.
They're a party that's good at
Winning
passing blame, at making accusations, at conspiracy theories. They're not good at governing.
election.
And we saw that with Trump's 4-year term. And we're going to see it again. Wait till those tariffs go into place. You think that's going to bring down inflation? The opposite. And wait till the mass roundup of supposedly undocumented migrants, and then you get documented migrants as part of it, family members, people who are working here. Wait till you can't find anyone in our agricultural industry to pick fruits and vegetables, and so you're going to pay twice the price for those. So we'll see. We'll see how things go in the coming months. Wait till he tries to make another run at the Affordable Care Act with a plan that's not even conceived of right now. Take away your health care. You think people are mad at the insurance industry now? Take away what health care we have, and they're going to turn their hatred and their venom towards those who took away their health care, the people in Congress and in the White House, who will make sure that they have to pay way more for a hospital visit. So I do think there's reason for a belief that we're gonna do better, but we have to, change a few things, and I'm optimistic that we will. So that's my spiel. I encourage your questions. We can talk about Florida. We can talk about the country, but I do think the fact we're on this Zoom channel and you're here at this meeting, Democrats, it's a good sign. I'll leave you this. Here's a sign for optimism. I always like optimism. Palm Beach County, which turned red 2 years ago, turned blue again. Yes, it's a closer county now with all the new people moving in. It's no longer a safe blue county. It's a purple county. But our county went for Kamala Harris. The county commission, which had a majority of Republicans, has now flipped blue. Every constitutional officer in this county, every single one, is a Democrat. So there's reason for optimism, Democrats.
Dave, I think that I started an article about, actually I put it in the latest issue, reason number 43 that Hillary lost. I told a friend back in 2020, I forget what it was, that I thought Joe Biden would have an advantage over her. And he said, yeah, well, that's reason number 43 that she lost.
It's true.
And you could say the same thing about Harris. And I was trying to pick through them. I mean, you've got sexism, which is probably even worse than racism. I mean, Barack Obama won, Hillary lost, and now Kamala lost. But as you were talking, it's messaging. I mean, if you said depend on the editorial boards, okay, they're not going to do it for us, even if people were reading them. And it infuriates me what the Times does with their false equivalences and headlines. Trump storms back. But do you really think that they don't have any impact anymore? I argue with my cousin about that. He was smiling as you said that nobody reads them anymore. But I think back to the Saddam Hussein's uranium tubes, and Dick Cheney going on Meet the Press and saying even the New York Times says that this is, even if people don't read it, there are other people that comment on what that media is doing.
Well, one thing that newspapers can do is do investigations. They can help with that. They've done and that's done by the national media, New York Times, Washington Post. They still have some juice there, but as far as their endorsements or editorials, they mean nothing. Local newspapers are dead, and so yes, the New York Times is still relevant. It is, but their influence is waning. I mean, I'm thinking about the Sun Sentinel. You got a newspaper in our community here in Delray Beach that has the biggest circulation in South County. The Sun Sentinel was too cowardly to make an endorsement of the presidential race. I mean, that's who we're counting on for good government. They're scared to make an endorsement of the presidential race. And then when it came to the state attorney's race, which is to me was everything to me. I mean, it was so important. It's not only my legacy, but the future of our county. They endorsed the Republican over Alexia Cox. The Republican had not even lived in our county. The Republican hadn't been a prosecutor in 12 years and was barely a prosecutor then. Alexia is a 18-year prosecutor. The Republican raised $1.5 million to spend on negative attack ads against Alexia.
No.
He raised the money from Donald Trump's cronies. Steve Wynn gave him $100,000. Tomas Petterfree, the richest man in Florida, gave him $250,000. He got hundreds of $1,000s from right wingers who didn't want to quote woke prosecutor in the seat, even though she is not what you call a woke prosecutor. She's a prosecutor. And meanwhile, the Sun Sentinel saw all this and endorsed the Republican, the unqualified Republican, over the 18-year qualified Democrat. And so they butted into the state attorney's race. But when it came to the presidential race, they said, no, we're not going to make an endorsement. That's the newspaper we're supposed to trust? And don't even get me started, the Palm Beach Post. I mean, the local newspapers are dead. They have no influence. The investigations that are being done where there is influence is done at the national level. The New York Times, Washington Post, they matter. But as far as their endorsements, their editorials don't matter there anymore. And Washington Post, again, killed their Kamala Harris endorsement. They refused it because they didn't want to upset Donald Trump.
The David Hogg had some very interesting comments. He's apparently running for vice chair of the DNC. I don't know how serious that is, but his comments were interesting. Where do you, what he's saying?
I heard up to David Hogg, and I know he's talking about running for vice chair of the Democratic Party, but then I lost you after that.
Oh, he said basically that he warned us months ago that we're losing young men,
Right.
that we're not reaching them, and we need to do something, and they ignored him. Yeah. And he was right. Yeah. And of course, Hispanics. I don't know how much of that was just sexism. How much of that is the fact that they just say socialism and they go running the other way? Yeah. I don't know how when socialism is basically what I am. Yeah.
Right. It is remarkable that people who fled countries where there's socialism voted for a strong man here in this country. Right. And they voted and they never supported Joe Biden. Joe Biden is the guy who actually beat the Democratic Socialists in the Democratic primary. So make it make sense. It doesn't make sense. I think when it comes to men, you do need to communicate better. They're the ones listening to Joe Rogan. They're the ones in their separate media universe, and they feel left out. And a lot of we tried to remedy the sexism in our country through Title IX, and we have done things to make it a party, to put more women anchors on TV, and there's lots of steps of progress that have been made. At the same time, I think men have felt like, hey, what about me? I mean, if you look at colleges, women dominate colleges now, where it's gotten to be such a skewed college that you have men underachieving, underperforming, and feeling like they're the underclass. And it's really something that we should start talking about because it just swung an election.
The reason that so many women go to college is because they get underpaid even when they have that college degree. They must have that. I wanted to say something about Alexia's race and that Sam Stern, because I did write a letter that was published. It was a disgrace that Craig Williams and Greg Lerman supported Sam Stern.
Is that Sheila?
Yep, it's me.
Sheila, you are right about everything you said, from women in college to Craig and Greg. One of the things we Democrats need to do better on is that we need to have a better way to enforce loyalty. I know that sounds weird, but here's what I mean. You don't see Republicans, after they lose a primary, run to support the Democrat. You don't see that. And there's an old adage, Democrats fall in love, Republicans fall in line. Right. Republicans would punish people who did that. They would be ostracized from the party. Greg Lerman has run for office previously for judge. This is his second race. He will probably run again. He has zero fears that this will hurt him in the future. And that's a shame, because if you do something like that, you should be like, no. You should be thinking, I won't be allowed to run again as a Democrat. I won't be invited to any more Democratic things. I will receive approbation, if that's a correct word, by my fellow Democrats. They will be upset with me. I mean, the Republicans know that there is a consequence for doing something like that. But Greg Lerman didn't think there would be a consequence, and that's why he did it so quickly. Even endorsing a Republican who is opposite the way he feels about criminal justice. Greg Lerman is a criminal defense lawyer from the far left. Sam Stern was running as a Trumper from the far right. But because Greg Lerman felt that he was rejected by the Democrats, because he lost so badly to Alexia Cox, whether it's sexism, whatever you want to call it, he felt like he was given the shaft. He ran and endorsed the Republican just to get back at her. Mm-hmm. And as far as Craig had never run for office before. Craig had never been involved in the Democratic Party. He's a lifetime prosecutor, and he was in the same office as Alexia, and it hurt him to lose so badly, to be rejected and finishing in third out of third place. And so he ran to support.
Now did interviews and endorsements, and Alexia is a great speaker. She talks from her heart. She tells you about her background, what she's going to do. And Greg was just terrible, I think. Oh, he was like talking about his Jewish wife and his Jewish kids, you know. And I don't know why the Democrats have a policy that if you support somebody out of the Democratic policy, you're not welcome there anymore. And I don't know if anything happened.
LBJ didn't put up with that.
Right.
Well, no, this is supposed to be the Democratic Party of Palm Beach County. And he just slapped him in the face.
They should never be invited. They should never be invited to Democratic events again. That when you see them at events, you should say, shame on you. I mean, this is the kind of thing that Republicans do. But Democrats, we're the Big Ten, welcome. He shows up at community events. No one says a word about it. And it was distressing. Here's the other reason why it was so distressing. That race was razor thin. That could have gone the other way. And her opponent used their support for him. Her opponent used their support for him against her and kept beating her over the head with it when it was nothing more than sour grapes. And the Sun Sentinel kept saying, oh, look, the two other Democrats endorsed Sam Stern over Alexia Cox. So we're going to go with Sam Stern. Meanwhile, like, what about me? I endorse Alexia Cox. I would think my endorsement matters more than her opponents. And here's the last part I'll say about this. The other part that really upset me was that they were asked repeatedly during the campaign, if you lose, will you support the other Democrats? And every one of them, Alexia, Craig, and Greg, both, all three, said yes. We promise we will support the winner. And as soon as Alexia won, they ran to support the Republican.
We should hold them and ignore them. I told Greg, I said, you're too old to run. Because it's an investment. You know, he only said he was going to run for one term. That was it.
Dave, I asked you about Biden again. I know you said a consequential president, and I thought he was the most effective president in my lifetime.
Yeah.
What he did with a split Senate and 5-vote majority in the House, and how he played the Republicans, and how he was the only one until now that didn't get the government shut down while he was in office. Clinton had it happen twice. Obama had it happen once, and then our credit rating got downgraded the other time. So, I mean, he was David Brooks in the Times at the beginning of his presidency had a column, a transformational president. And he compared him to Reagan from the other side. And that's where Biden was at the beginning in his first year before inflation. And then the media unloaded on him. I mean, no one was defending him. The Times was running headlines, worst inflation in 40 years,
Right.
over and over, human interest stories about how hard it was for people. And I mean, at that point, we didn't know at that point what was going to happen in the debate. You know, that was the point at which he could have said, okay, you know what, I am stepping down. But then you lose the power of the incumbency and you have a shit show of, 20 people running again. So I thought at the time that his thinking was right. And his thinking was right about Harris too, because who was going to be the pick if not when the South Carolina congressman, I'm blocking on his name, Clyburn, he said, if not Biden, Harris, and it would have been basically shitting on on our most loyal supporters to have someone other than Kamala be the nominee. So, I don't know how it could have been done differently.
When he left, it had to be Kamala. There was no way at that late stage you could have done a whole primary. There's no way that you could have bypassed her and picked someone else. That would have been an insult, and you would have lost our best group of supporters, Black women, who've been like, now you're going to bypass the vice president. And then she exceeded expectations. She did very well. It's just that he didn't give her enough time. He should have bailed early on, and then there could have been a primary.
Come on inside.
Yeah.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. The thing that I'm not sure, when you said that she should have run kind of away from Biden, the problem was that Biden was a great president. And I don't know how you can, instead of really running away from him, she should have said, I don't know, that, listed what was accomplished, what has helped Americans. It probably wouldn't have gone anywhere, but
it's the messaging.
It's running again, you're running away from a very successful president who just happens to be too old.
Can I say something here
Sure.
on messaging?
You don't have to run away from him because you are his vice president and he was loyal to her and it's okay to be loyal to him. But when someone asks you how it would be different, you have to have an answer. And the answer should have been, I think we should have closed the border earlier. I mean, right there. That's it.
Right.
Done.
Yeah.
Drop the mic. Drop the mic.
I'm on a Zoom. Go
Yeah,
ahead, start.
Ads that weren't bashing the trans thing were endless commercials of horrible people pouring over the border. And yes, it should have been done 2 years earlier.
We have
Exactly.
enough.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, go in front of the computer. That's where the microphone is. It's not there. It's in front of it's right off his computer.
Right.
Oh.
Yeah, just
You're
talk
good.
into
You'll be
there.
heard from there.
Okay.
How about this,
So,
Michael?
I heard something interesting the other day about messaging going forward. Suggestion that we should have a shadow cabinet, and for every Trump appointee, every role they're put in,
What show what?
a shadow, so whatever they do, you can respond instantly and get our message across in real time. That was one thing. The other thing I heard was that I don't follow Trump's Truth Social, but I understand since he now won the popular vote, he now supports the Electoral College appointing the electors based on the popular vote, which sounded like a great opportunity. If Trump wants that, I'd like to grant his wish. And if we get Florida to chime into that, it would pass. interstate popular vote compact,
Right.
it would pass if we got Florida to sign on. And if Trump wants it, I'd like to grant him that wish.
I love it. I think there's a real opening because he doesn't know that that would be the best thing that would happen to our country and to the Democratic Party if we went back to if we got rid of the Electoral College. So you got to make him believe that it's his idea and that it'll be really good for
It's
him.
his idea. He announced that's what he would like.
Yeah.
Grant his wish.
No one ever thought of it before. No one else could have thought of it.
But the simple thing with that, with the compact that's proposed, it doesn't change anything. It just keeps the Electoral College. It doesn't abolish it.
Right.
It just says instead of doing it the current way, you just send electors that reflect the popular vote. Really easy, real simple. If we could Florida to get down to that, that'd be great. And what do you think about the shadow cabinet?
I think that would be a great way to fix so many problems. I've always supported that compact, and all it takes is Florida to sign on to it. Yeah, but we're not a state that believes that's at the forefront of good government measures. This is a MAGA petri dish right now. That's where our state is.
Yeah. All right, but you're running into your deadline here.
I am, but you know what? I'm sending a text. So I'm gonna extend it. I'll stay for another 5 minutes if it's okay with you guys.
Yeah,
let's do another 5 minutes.
Marty, why don't you come up here? So
I wanted to ask Dave about the upcoming in 2 years. Who do you think we need to start focusing on now to get them to win for winning?
For governor, you mean?
Well, for governor and for the House of Reps, who can you give us an idea?
I mean, we want to reelect our own people down here, Lois Frankel and
Right.
Jared Moskowitz. I think those are the only seat. I mean, we're not. These seats are so gerrymandered that we're not going to be able to defeat Brian Mast north of here. But I do think that if you want to win the governor's race, there's one candidate who I think on the Democratic side, even though he's now an independent, but that could win. And I don't think he's going to run, even though he talks about running all the time. And that's John Morgan. I think John Morgan is the Democrats' version of Trump. He's outrageous. He has huge name ID, big personality, curses, and just he relates to people. That's how he's become so successful. You see him on every billboard. Morgan and Morgan. John Morgan has always talked about running for governor. I hope he does this time around. He's talked about it. Now he's an independent. I don't know. Now another candidate who wants to run is Jason Pizzo, who's a state senator out of Miami. He's not well known. He's a smart guy. He's a former prosecutor. He's good, but it's a hard state to win. He'll have primary opposition. The one thing he has over others is that his family has a lot of money, and that goes a long way in Florida if you can stay on TV and go toe to toe with Republicans. So I think you'll see people talk about those two. There'll be others mentioned, but it's an uphill battle. Florida has become much redder. We have 1 million more Republicans than Democrats now. That was different 3-4 years ago. And we've got to prove that a Democrat can win statewide before national money pours in here. Yeah. The money has stopped coming in because the perception now is that Florida is a very red state.
Do you know what Maxwell Frost said about Florida?
No.
What did he say?
That it's not a red state; it's an under-organized blue state.
Oh,
now, it's a great line. I don't know that I agree with it, but the Democrats are certainly under-organized. I think
there's a little truth in that, but to go as far as say we're a blue state, no, remember when Barack Obama came down, he put his own team in place. They organized and he won twice. And it's that was a long time ago. So it can be done. That reminds me of a saying that the Republicans use. When I was in Tallahassee, the Republicans used to say this. They would, because they'd win all the elections, and they used to say, "We're not the Harlem Globetrotters, but we're always competing against the Washington Generals."
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Well, that's true. What?
Read the chat one.
The chat one. Okay. Who is this from? Lynn Andia.
No, I'm in Kelly, the one from Kelly.
Oh, okay.
It should be under there.
Oh, when you spoke at the Northern Democratic Club, you mentioned Ms. Cox's name and Craig's name, but you forgot to mention his name. Do you think that made him a bit upset?
No,
By the-
I didn't forget. I intentionally didn't mention Greg Lerman's name. That was totally intentional, and the reason is that I was neutral in the race, but I supported my two people who were running. I liked Alexia and I liked Craig. Greg Lerman should never have run for state attorney. He knew how I feel. He should have run for public defender. That was an open seat. He could have run for that. It's like if I ran for chair of the Republican Party, or if I wanted to get appointed Pope. I mean, that'd be like, what? Aronberg's gonna be Pope? Greg Lerman being state attorney? He's a lifelong criminal defense lawyer who represents the worst people in the world against our office, been anti-prosecutor, anti-police. You don't make that person state attorney. That person is qualified to run for public defender. So it was totally intentional when I was talking about that there are two great candidates in the race for state attorney. Those are the two people who worked for me. At the same time, I am disappointed that Craig Williams did what he did. So, no, I don't think that the reason why Greg Lerman went and supported the Republicans was because I said that day. After all, I praised Craig Williams that day, too, and he ran to the Republicans, too. They just both got their hats handed to them. Alexia won with 65% of the vote in a three-way race. So that's why they went to the Republicans. They were like, screw this. They both thought they were going to win, and when it didn't happen, they were so upset, such sour grapes, they ran to Sam Stern.
I started to read Lynn Andy's chat comment. Just at the risk of sounding critical, we have so many people critiquing what happened and who seem to have great ideas about what needs to happen. Why weren't these voices heard during the campaign? Are those in charge of the campaign out to lunch? Well, people complained about it. I mean, but that's what happens all of the time with
It's Monday morning.
Yeah, I'm the first one to admit this is Monday morning quarterbacking. I thought Kamala was going to win, and this was when you do an analysis of what happened after you lose, you look back, say what went wrong, and you can see things with better focus, better vision than when you're going through it. Because when you're going through it, you don't have that sense of perspective. And yeah, it is some Monday morning quarterbacking, but at the same time, you sort of need to look at the numbers and the data. And I didn't know at the time that we would lose every group compared to the prior cycle. I mean, we even did worse amongst Black women this time around than we did 2 years ago. So, trying to find why did that happen? And I think communication, Biden staying in too long, and a couple of errors that Kamala made, but I think overall she ran a good race. I do not blame her. She did about as well as you could ask someone to do in those circumstances.
Yeah, no, I was frankly amazed because I remembered how she ran in 2020, and that's why I was supporting Biden, because at the time when Biden said, I'm not going to step down, you looked at the polls and she was doing worse in the polls than he was. But then she really picked it up. And I thought that she was going to win. I mean,
I did.
And the worst part of it is that he once again inherits a good economy, a great economy. When he said that his was the greatest economy ever, Obama's economy in his last 3 years was stronger than Trump's in his first 3 years before COVID. And then COVID, he blows everything up, and Biden fixes it. He fixes inflation, and now it's they always overstep, and we get it back, but they go 3 steps backwards and we go 2 steps forward, and that's what happens each time. So we're playing catch up. It's
I have to go, but can we take one more? If there's one more question, and then I have to go. I want to first off say thank you to the group for inviting me. I hope to see you in person sometime soon. I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person today, but I'm inspired by your questions, your interest, your passion, and that's why I love talking to groups like this and the Indivisible group in North County that was mentioned, because I believe in the Democratic Party, and I believe in Palm Beach County, and I see reasons for optimism and hope. And although I'll be leaving my job here, I'm not leaving politics forever, and I'm not leaving the community. I'm going to stay active, stay involved, and I want to make sure that Florida one day turns blue again. So don't forget me. I'll still be here.
Okay, yes. All right, no, I don't see any other questions,
Okay.
and thank you, Dave. Really great to have you.
Thank you. Thank you all so much.
Okay.
Happy holidays.
Thank you,
Wait,
Dave.
wait, wait.
God bless you.
Thank you.
What? Wait.
These large rallies that she had with thousands of people cheering, and we think she's going to win the election. Wouldn't it be better to have, like, I didn't see many groups discussing much in Palm Beach County or in other counties. Isn't it better to get to small groups, have discussions on more on a personal basis? I can't see that these large rallies do anything except cheering.
No. I don't know if you could hear that, Dave.
I could. That's a good point. That's one of those things that, again, while we're going through it, we said, look at these rallies. We're going to win.
Yeah.
And then after the fact, we're like, yeah, maybe that's one of the lessons learned. Maybe there's a better approach than to spend time with these huge rallies of people who are probably going to support you anyways. Maybe there's a better way to do it. And it's going on alternative media, having small groups, that kind of stuff. Yeah, I think that's an important conversation to have.
Yeah. Yeah. They said when Trump went on a lot of podcasts and stuff, reaching out to I mean, he's a great marketer. I mean, he really had his pulse, his finger on the pulse.
Yeah.
A lot of people who were very upset and wanted change. They said it earlier.
Yeah.
It
was a change election.
A change
Yeah.
election that around the world, not just here.
Yeah.
And when
You got it.
things like that, it's easy to go right wing.
Yeah.
They have simple slogans for simple minds.
No, that's right. No.
Hey, Dave, we're gonna let you go. And
All right. Yeah,
Thanks
I love
again.
it. Thank you, guys.
yeah,
Thanks, Dave.
take care.
Thank you.
Take care.
Good night. All right. So, and we're gonna let everyone else go on Zoom and clean up here. There we go. Oh, look, we had
Everyone on Zoom.
yeah, Jeff Cashton was on. Lois. Yeah.
I'm afraid that we're not going to have an America by the 2026 election with these crackpots that he's putting in place, these dangerous
No,
people.
well, we have to see, but I don't.
That's not an answer. We have to see. We have to start working now to save America.
She was a she and not a he, and that was the reason. I even know women who said, I wouldn't vote for that.
Yeah, well, no, sexism is definitely.
Still bad here.
They didn't care about abortion. I said, what about abortion? Oh, he's not gonna do anything. He just
Not to
doesn't-
me, right? Not to me.
I know. People believe how they can. I will never know. Yeah. They the insurrection, and that should have been mentioned more during the election. And people don't vote. I went to Sawgrass after the 2 years ago election, the gubernatorial election. And I'm an old lady, so I can act crazy. And I talked to about 20 people I didn't know. Did you vote? Did you vote? Oh, was there an election? No, I didn't vote.
Were you talking the midterms?
People.
The midterms? Yeah, the midterms, that 2.5 million 2.5 million Democrats didn't vote in the midterms, and DeSantis won by 1.5 million votes, and Rubio won by 1 million votes, and then they interviewed two people in this article. One woman said, young woman, I knew that Trump was bad, but I had no idea DeSantis was so bad. Okay. And then they interviewed a guy who said, well, everyone said that DeSantis was going to win, and I didn't want to take a day off from work to go vote. This guy didn't know about vote by mail. He didn't know about early voting early. I mean, it's.
Okay, 5.
Yeah.
Well,
4. 3. 2. 1.
gotta get 'em out.
And
All right.